Hello and welcome to this online presentation titled Learning in Lockdown. We're going to be discussing our experiences of training in histopathology in the Northwest during the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Umar Hussain and I'm the current trainee representative for Histopathology Northwest. And also speaking today will be my colleagues Nichola, Gaunt and Ruane, who were my trainee representative predecessors. Also involved, but not speaking today, are Doctors Debbie Baishnab and Charlotte Wilson. Debbie was quite heavily involved in introducing online learning in our region, as we'll discuss later. And Charlotte Wilson has kindly contributed her experiences of learning in lockdown during her Stage D training. The presentation will have two main topics of discussion. The first of which is the effect of COVID-19 on our regional teaching programme and how we've adopted online learning to tackle that. And we'll be discussing the strengths and weaknesses of that approach, as well as the opportunities we have to improve and challenges we may face doing that. The second topic is discussing the effect that we've had on day-to-day learning opportunities on the job and how we can maximise those. Just to give a bit of background about our regional teaching programme, it's a trainee-led programme where trainees reach out to departments in the region who organise a day of learning, and this usually happened every 2 to 3 months. And it would be the traditional face-to-face type teaching style comprising slide seminars and PowerPoint presentations. And of course, with the advent of COVID-19, this had to be stopped because of restrictions on travel as well as social distancing measures. And interestingly, one of the effects of COVID-19 was also to reduce the number of surgical specimens coming through the door in many departments. And this meant consultants had more free time to deliver teaching to us. So they would reach out to trainees to try to facilitate a way to deliver this teaching. And as I mentioned previously, Debbie and Nichola and Sarah were heavily involved in introducing the online learning in our region via MS Teams, where they would advertise consultants who were willing to give sessions and also post the links for the MS Teams sessions on there. This was a really positive step. However, the attendance wasn't consistent, and what we could put that down to was the somewhat ad hoc nature of the teaching. Consultants would usually tell us that they're available to give teaching on the day that they knew they were free, and that didn't leave much time for trainees to free their schedules to attend. So one thing that we decided to do to tackle that was to make teaching more regular. So we opted for an afternoon of online teaching on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month. And this would comprise 3 sessions, each separated by a 15-minute break, to tackle the well-known phenomenon of Zoom fatigue. And one session in particular that's been very well received is the peer-led sessions to ST2s. This is where a senior trainee will deliver to an ST2 trainee. And the reason we did this was we recognise ST2 is a difficult enough year as it is, but with the restrictions, it made training for them even more difficult, and these sessions were put in place to support them during this time. Another change that we've made is to move to Zoom from MS Teams, and the reason we did this is because Zoom is a lot more user-friendly and it's a lot easier to set up meetings for different hospitals in the region to attend. And we have purchased the Zoom Meeting Pro package, which is relatively inexpensive, and from our experience has been worth it. The format of the teaching is pretty similar to how it's always been. However, consultants tend not to use their own cases, probably because of limitations with projecting from their own microscope. So they opt to use cases which have been scanned and uploaded onto the Leeds Virtual Pathology website. PowerPoints are still a common format of teaching.
There were several strengths to the North West Deanery virtual online teaching programme. Firstly was geography. As you can see on the map to the right, there are several hospitals included within the North West Deanery, and several are quite far away. Trainees can be placed anywhere between South Manchester and Lancaster. However, an online platform meant that trainees from every hospital could engage with the regional training programme. It therefore reduced commute time and also made smaller, more peripheral departments able to engage with the teaching programme. It also meant that shielding, or trainees working from home, or trainees with specialist requirements, such as trainees on maternity leave, were able to attend and engage with the virtual teaching platform in a lot more of an accessible and relaxed way. It also meant that trainees could see the cases and review material prior to teaching, which helped with enthusiasm levels. Trainees could also ask questions on the chat function on the online learning, and they could also utilise polling tools to help with interactivity. Short ad hoc sessions could be fit in at any time, and this was particularly helpful for trainees who were looking to undertake the Part 1 and Part 2 examinations. No room bookings were required, and flexible timings meant the participation was high. Electronic feedback was easier to acquire and more readily available, and sessions could also be recorded so that material could be reviewed at home and also used as revision material. One of the most important strengths was also being able to get a brew and being comfortable at home. However, there were some weaknesses with the virtual platform. There were some technical issues. For example, there were MS Teams networking issues, and also some trusts did not enable access to Zoom. There were also some problems with losing the dynamic nature of learning and the opportunity to spontaneously divert to other topics whilst discussing the current presentation. There was also a lack of face-to-face interaction. There was a decrease in the social networking between trainees and consultants, and there was a loss of reviewing glass slides. However, there were also lots of opportunities. There was more opportunity for teaching to be delivered by both consultants and trainees. There was also the opportunity to develop new skills with information technology and the use of MS Teams and Zoom alike. There was increased exposure to digital pathology, and there was development of new ways to deliver teaching. It also overcame some of the difficulties associated with arranging face-to-face teaching, as discussed before. The challenges that faced the virtual teaching were access to slide scanning, access to the Zoom platform, MS Teams networking issues, and troubleshooting issues which required a certain level of technical knowledge. There was also a lot of variation in access to microscope cameras, webcams, and microphones, with some trusts being more digital ready than others. Also, scan slides can take a long time to load, and there can be significant variation in the quality of the slides. The range of cases were also sometimes limited, as they were required to be pre-scanned. And unfortunately, as with all Zoom, there was an element of Zoom fatigue.
Hello, my name is Nichola Gaunt. I'm currently an ST5 histopathology trainee in the North West Deanery. Here is how we overcame some of the challenges associated with delivering teaching online. With time, we found that most trusts allowed Zoom access on a limited licence, allowing teaching to occur on the Zoom platform. We acquired increased technical knowledge in creating meetings on Microsoft Teams. However, we found Zoom to be much more intuitive. We shared our knowledge with each other when setting up meetings on Teams. We really appreciated the amount of teaching we were receiving. However, we found it best to create scheduled times in the week to allow trainees and consultants to plan around it. We also limited the number of sessions in one day to prevent Zoom fatigue. We still have some ongoing issues regarding access to microscope cameras and access to webcams and microphones. Some trainees have resorted to using personal devices. There is an ongoing issue regarding access to whole slide scanning across our region. Some centres have more access than others. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to discuss some of the enablers and barriers to learning during the pandemic. Most trusts have limited use of large multi-header microscopes with social distancing precautions in place, which has allowed review of cases to continue. Other ways of reviewing cases have included microscope cameras and MS Teams. We've been able to receive feedback over the phone, written or face-to-face. We've tried to maximise learning from all cases, such as reading around cases and sharing cases with colleagues. And we've found the support of our peers to be very beneficial. We've tried to maintain contact with trainees posted in departments on their own. One of the obvious barriers to learning in the pandemic has been the reduction in departmental workloads, which has resulted in a reduction in the number and range of cases seen by trainees. Access to IT has sometimes made it difficult to continue to review cases in some circumstances. The cases coming into departments have often been more complex cancer cases, which couldn't necessarily be independently reported, limiting the exposure and experience of more senior trainees. Trainees may have also missed out on exposure to some of the more practical aspects of histopathology, as there have been less specimens to cut up, and in some centres mortuary access has been limited. We found the pandemic has opened up additional learning experiences we might not have otherwise considered. I found that I now have the ability to attend more MDTs and clinical meetings, as this can be done remotely and access is widened across the region. There is increased access to national EQA meetings that I perhaps wouldn't have previously had the time to attend. And we found that there is increased access to courses as numbers aren't as limited and fees for courses are often reduced on an online platform. Some meetings are also paired up, allowing greater access again. We found there's more access to national and international teaching events, and many of us have started to follow pathologists on Twitter who frequently share cases. We found there's more time to work on audit, quality improvement and research as a result of the pandemic. And we've seen lots of good examples of leadership and management across our region. Lastly, I'd just like to say thank you to all the trainees and consultants in the region for continuing to engage with teaching and training in this really difficult and uncertain time. And we hope this presentation has been useful and has provided some points of reflection for all pathology trainees and specialties. Thank you and take care.